The online community space has had its ups and downs, especially over the last year or so, with people finding themselves out of work and on the job market. But I maintain, and I think my guest will too, that community careers are the place to be. There's tremendous opportunity in this space, and learning how to break in, figuring out how to make all that work is our topic for the discussion today on Talk About Your Community. Kalisa, please roll the opener. Good afternoon and good evening, wherever you may happen to be in the world. You've now tuned in to Talk About Your Community. I'm Todd Nilson with Clocktower Advisors. And on this show, on this stream, we bring in all kinds of community builders, people that build communities in person, online, or my favorite, the hybrid in between. And we learn all of the ins and outs, the terminologies, the frameworks, the technologies, and the fun kinds of elements of being a community builder in this space. I'm grateful for you taking a little bit of time to tune in and see what we've got to share. And if you've never been to the show before, this is a live and interactive show. So if you are live and on the stream, please don't be shy. Give a shout out. Let us know where you're from, what kind of community building you're into and interested in. And we will do our best to interact with you and bring your questions up onto the screen here as we go through the talk today. Now, before I bring my guest Max Pete on to talk a little bit about his journey as a community builder and breaking into the community professional space, I had a couple of brief announcements just to move forward with. Mainly, if you're interested in that journey into the career profession, I have an article that's going to be upcoming in the Community Leaders Institute magazine that'll be released shortly, and it's all about managing your career as an online community professional. I was a recruiter for 15 years before I entered this space. I know a little bit about the job search, and at least from that perspective, and my own personal experiences, of course. And I try to share some real talk in that particular article with some ideas there. I'll also mention that my next upcoming guest in 2 weeks on September the 22nd, same bat time, same bat channel, is Lais de Olivieri, the published author on community. We're going to be talking about designing communities for member contribution. And that's sort of the architecture of communities, designing communities to optimize them for member contributions. It's going to be a great conversation. She's a fantastic person. I think we're going to have some really great conversations for that as well. Welcome to friends who've tuned in on the stream. I see Famila and Adrian and Jenny. So wonderful to see you guys. Thank you for tuning in. Without any further ado, I want to welcome onto the show Max. And Max is the builder of thriving communities that spark impactful outcomes. Max, welcome to Talk About Your Communities. How are you today?
I'm good. Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, man, I've been wanting to have you on the show for some time. Ever since I caught some of what you did at the Community Rebellion event and just kind of had some interactions with you via Slack. It's so nice of you to spend a little time with me today and share a little about your journey.
Yeah, I'm really excited to be here.
Yeah. So rather than asking sort of your community origin story, I want to ask you a very specific question about community. Was there a moment? Was there an epiphany? Was there some point at which you realized that being a community builder was where you wanted to be career-wise?
Yeah, no, that's a great question, and that definitely happened for me when I was a member of this freelance community called Freelance Founders. I was just a member, but I was like really active and participating, and I was like, oh, I really like doing this. Like this is fun. Like I would just wake up early, and that's the first thing I would go to is a community and answer questions and help support the other members. And when I saw a community manager role open there, I was like, okay, this looks great. Like I've never done this before professionally. I've never trained for this. I was doing something completely different beforehand, but I was like, I think this is a cool job, and it would be something I would really love to explore. And so like when those two things aligned and I actually got that opportunity, I was like, okay, this is like what I want to do.
That's awesome, man. Now, you were kind of in a different career space before you moved into communities. What were you doing earlier? I think I saw something about you were in the music industry or doing some work
Yeah,
in that
so
space.
I started out in the music industry. I first wanted to become a music producer. Like that was my main goal when I was going into college. But then I discovered the business side of music and was like, oh, this is a lot of fun. And when I graduated, I got a job at an agency that was specializing in helping artists run their digital marketing campaigns. And so I did that for a few years, really loved it. Went from an agency to a label, and then ended up starting my own freelance business in design and advertising, and did that for 5 or 6 years while also working sometimes at agencies in between like gigs and things like that. And then I ended up doing that until the start of the pandemic, when it was like really like I was looking for that next transition. And when I stumbled upon community and was like, oh wow, like this is like what I was like meant to do.
Yeah, that's amazing. But I definitely relate. I came from a pretty unrelated space myself, and when I saw that like community was actually a thing, there was that sort of that moment of epiphany where you realize, well, I've been kind of doing this already, but there's like this whole profession that's dedicated to it. That's pretty amazing, and it is sort of this moment of joy or sort of this sigh of oh, okay, I get it. This is where I want to
Yeah,
be as a space.
yeah, yeah.
So, Max, if community were a genre of music, what would it be?
That is a great question. I don't even know if I could put it in a genre, because it would depend on the community, right? Like some communities I would say are different genres. It's not like
Sure.
a one size fits all. Uh, I will say though, working in community, I have been listening to a lot more like lo-fi beats to like keep me focused and to like mellow out in the background. I've been noticing like I work a lot to that type of music now. Just being in the space, it allows me to concentrate and to like do my like daily tasks and things like that.
That's really interesting. I definitely put on those kinds of what is it, the binaural beats and
Yeah.
sort of the lo-fi kind of stuff when I'm trying to focus too. I used to put on surfer rock, like
Oh, nice.
instrumental, because it just sort of like had a rhythm to it and a driving intensity that was kind of fun. Uh,
Yeah, I as someone who like loves music and worked in the music industry, I this is weird for me to say, but like I normally don't listen to music while I work. Um, I just the lyrics and music will often distract me from what I'm doing.
yeah.
So, but I found that the lo-fi music, that like just the beats are like really they keep me like focused and going. But every time I tell my friends like I don't listen to music like a lot during the day, during when I work, they always like look at me weird. But it's just it distracts me.
Yeah, it's such a strange relationship with that. But sometimes when you're doing like a really focused activity, you almost want to break yourself out from just sort of the ambient noise around you. And I don't know if you're like one of these people. Like, can you work in a coffee shop or other kinds of like busy thoroughfare spaces? Do you like that white noise in the background, or are you more like give me silence or give me the beats or whatever?
I do love working at coffee shops, but I only do that like when I'm not like I don't have any calls or nothing that's like I have to really pay close attention to, because I do find myself like I'll work a little bit and then I'll like look up and like be distracted and like people watch and then go back to work.
Yeah.
So, but I thrive off the energy of it, and like I honestly need to do that more now. Sometimes I just like find myself just at home all day, like in my office, and I'm like, I kind of want that in-person energy.
Give me some energy around that, right. Like
Yeah.
so much of music is about mindset, right? I mean, it's kind of putting yourself in the right frame so that you can do the things that you need to do. And yeah, I appreciate that view. So Max, when you made the transition into your first community role, and you kind of learned about the space, were there particular um, pieces of writing or advice or blogs or resources that you looked to for your initial scaffolding of learning that you put together?
Yeah. So when I was at Freelance Founders, when I was starting off as a community manager, yeah, I had no idea what I was doing. I still don't know what I'm doing. I'm always figuring out as I go. But Ben, who works at ComSor, he was like, hey, you should check out the community club. There's a lot of great resources. They were doing live like cohorts in C school at the time, and there's like so many other community managers you connect with. Like, I'd love to like get you an invite there. And I was like, oh, this is cool. Like, yeah, I'll check it out. And then I was like, whoa, like there's so many cool community managers in there, like that are helping one another and sharing really cool resources and just the resources that they had on their site. I enrolled in C school and did like the foundation course. And I took my strategy of when I was freelancing, I did a lot of like, I'm going to learn by like how others are doing it. Like that's kind of how I learned a lot. And so I did that same approach with community building. I was like, all right, who who are the community builders I look up to and like who are really doing great work? And I'm just going to like want to connect with them, chat with them, introduce myself and see how they're doing it and learn from them. And that was just my whole approach of like just getting started into the space.
Yeah, and so for others who are just getting started, when you say you connected with them, how did you connect with them? Was it like a cold LinkedIn outreach, or were they on the same Slack with you, or like how did that work?
Yeah, it was either like through LinkedIn or it was through like a Slack that we were in. And yeah, 98% of the time it was just a cold outreach of myself being like, hey, this is who I am. This is why I'm reaching out. I think you're cool because of this. And I would just like love to connect. My thing is like, you know, I understood that some people won't get back to you for whatever reason, and I just don't take it personally. I'm like, okay, like that should not the right time or place at
Yeah,
that time. But it when I was doing that freelancing, I met like the most amazing other freelancers in the space, and so I was like, I'm going to do that with community builders too. And what I found was like people were like, oh yeah, I'd love to connect, I'd love to chat, let's share stories. Like I want to learn how you got into community, and then and I just wanted to like learn. So I was like, okay, if there's anything I can do to support, like if you just need someone to review something or bounce ideas off of, or if I can offer any perspective from being in music or advertising or working with small businesses, like let me know. And just started to do it that way. I felt like, that energy often gets returned back to you. And I just wanted to be as helpful as I could because I knew like that's how I'm going to learn and grow in the space.
there's such incredible generosity of the people that are
Hmm.
working in our space. I mean, I'm struck by it every day. People will ask a question, they'll ask for help. It's a very mission oriented group of people that are welcoming. I mean, it's because we're community builders. We recognize the inherent vulnerability of reaching out to somebody else for help, and I think there's a lot of empathy, within our space. Um, so for anybody that's maybe thinking about like how do I become a community manager? How do I break into this space? I would encourage them to follow you as an example for that. Like reach out, don't take it personally, but recognize that there are a lot of people who probably will respond to you and try to offer you, something very helpful.
Yeah, and especially too if you're interested in a particular field of community. So if you're like, I want to really learn about engagement strategy, or I want to learn about how to report on like KPIs and metrics, and like it's if you can find that lane too and find people who are doing that really well, and kind of like tell your story and like why you want to learn this and how you can help and support, like that works really well too. So um yeah, I would just say go for it. Like again, some people are not going to get back to you. It's not personal. It's
Yeah.
just sometimes life happens and they're busy and they mean to reply, but it doesn't happen. And you're going to meet great people along the way. Like it really opens up a lot of doors. It opens up a lot of friendships, and yeah, it's just really cool to do.
And this is something like, for giving that advice, and I want to recognize what a rare thing it is that you're doing, because like for any of us that are living sort of on a day-to-day basis in LinkedIn, which to me is like the primary professional community platform that I want to be involved with. I so seldom get relevant outreach messages. Like like 85% or more of the messages that are coming into me are inappropriately formatted pitches, uh,
Hmm.
as opposed to saying like, as opposed to somebody saying like, "Hey, Todd, I noticed, you're building these kinds of communities and you're doing these kinds of things. I'm really interested in your writing about this topic or that topic. Can we talk about it?" Why would I not respond to something like that as opposed to the generic messages that I'll usually say,
Hmm.
something like, "Hey, I noticed that you have a great profile. I would like to connect and talk." No, I'm
Yeah.
at the point, like, I'm so saturated with those messages that I just, as much as I want to be empathetic and like recognize that maybe there is a legitimate outreach there, um, reaching out with those specific kinds of asks and recognizing, like, signaling that, yes, I have read your profile, I know what you're about, and I'm really interested in talking about these things. The relevancy of that kind of outreach, I think you get a very high percentage of people that would come back and want to talk to you.
Yeah, no, definitely. And something else too, like, if you are part of community communities for community builders, so like CMX, the community talk
Led,
base
led by,
commoners. Yeah, led by, there's so
congratulations.
many.
Yeah.
If you are part of any and you're starting out, see how you can be helpful to other people who are asking questions. Like, say, like, if someone's asking a question about something and you have insight on or advice on, like, go answer it and be helpful. I think that also helps too, because people are like, oh, like, I noticed that Max answered like 5 questions, like he's being helpful, and so like that helps open up a lot of that opportunities in those doors too, where like that, those connections, where sometimes if you're like, oh, I don't actually want to reach out to someone one-on-one, but you can start to respond to people's posts and build up that way. I think that that can be a nice way to just get your foot into the door too. And then and because like, even if you are starting out like freshly into community, we all have a really great perspective and unique perspective to share. And so like, I that's one thing, is like, I don't want you to like hesitate to share your insights. Like, everyone has cool things to talk about, and like insights that could be helpful, even if
Yeah.
someone's been in the game for 15 years. Like, they might be only thinking about one certain thing. And so yeah, just share what's on your mind.
I love that. And I find the longer that I'm in this space, and I've been doing this formally for a bit over 10 years now, like, the less confident I am of the things that are, taken as accepted wisdom. I think like, I feel like I've got to guard myself more, as a consultant, to prevent myself from being calcified in my knowledge base of the things that I
Mhm.
think I know, that are there. It's even more important, I think, the longer that you're in the space. And I appreciate talking to people who are a little bit newer in the space, like you, because you're coming in without any of those preconceptions, any of those notions. You're looking with clearer eyes than I could have at the space as it is now, as it is today. I really appreciate that orientation. Um, so um, so I noticed also, that you were a speaker at Community Rebellion, and I read and appreciated. I think you wrote a piece about, how you prepared, for that. You've got a Substack, for anybody that's out there. They should definitely subscribe to it. You got some great stuff on there. Um, how did that come about? And would you recommend that for somebody who's, pretty new in their community career?
Yeah, so it was that was unexpected. Like, Clara from Talkbase reached out to me one day and was like, "Hey, we're thinking about throwing this conference. Would you like to speak at it?" And my immediate imposter syndrome was like, it was telling me, I was like, no, like, I I can't do this. Haven't been in the industry that long to speak, and like, I haven't done it formally like that before. So I was just like, but I was like, you know what? I'm just gonna say yes, and then figure it out as I go. And it was amazing. Like, I had a lot of support from my like old colleagues and friends, and who like helped me like draft a good presentation and practice and things like that. But it was a lot of fun, and I highly recommend doing those opportunities. And even if you're not like speaking at a conference or a big public event, like, pitch yourself for podcasts or events like this. Like, if you're like, hey, I want to do some more public speaking, first, I think, is like, put it out in the universe and say you actually want to do this, because then you kind of can hold yourself accountable to that. And then two, it's like, okay, well, I'm going to ask people who have these sort of events and content, and then see if I can like, tell my story, or I want to talk about some certain part of the community industry that hasn't been really talked about a lot, and pitch yourself that way. That is often like how I've landed a lot of speaking opportunities or been on podcasts, is just literally by asking. Like sometimes people approach me and be like, "Hey Max, we'd love to have you on." But I would say for the most part, I just like, "Hey, like I would love to be part of this. If you ever have an opening, this is what I like to talk about," and just go from there. The same, like reach out to other community people.
Yeah, that's awesome. I love that. Um, and I think it was a great experience for you. I know there was a great deal of excitement and ebullience about how that event itself went. Any kind of hindsight reactions to like what that's meant for you?
Yeah, I mean, so one, I would say like I'm just very thankful for the community people who I've met in real life there, and like who were like super helpful, and especially like Iker and Peter, who like helped me like walk the stage, and Richard too. Like they helped me like practice and walk the stage, and they've been speaking for a long time. So
Mhm.
like that just like brought my confidence level super high, because like I was like, okay, these people have been doing it, they're helping me, and that's just like that support was awesome. And it just gave me the motivation and confidence to do more of these. Like I'm just like, okay, I did it. Like that was my first one. Yes, it was hard, and like um, I was nervous and all the above, and I will probably continue to be that way for all the events. But it just
Totally
showed me that like,
natural.
hey, I could do it. So like it gave me like the confidence. So I am looking forward to more speaking events and things like that.
Yeah, that's fantastic. And I'll doubly underscore, especially how obviously I think Ilker, who's my co-founder of Talent
Yes.
Led, our new startup, is as an encourager of new voices in the space and an experienced speaker, but also Richard, who I think is one of the most polished speakers in our industry, and whose advice I'm sure was golden for that.
Hmm.
Um, so for those of you, if you just happen to have tuned in, I'm talking to Max Pete, community builder, sharing a bit about his journey into the world of community management. And this particular stream is dedicated for those of you who are maybe a little newer in the profession or trying to break into the profession. And hopefully it gives you some ideas and some confidence and inspiration for how you can make that work for yourself. I also wanted to just do a shout out to a couple of other folks who tuned into the stream. Rob Fox, Vashti, and I also saw Claire Starley appearing. Wonderful to see you guys again. Thank you so much for popping in. Really appreciate that. Max, from the time when you decided like, hey, I'm really interested in this community building thing, and now on the other side of a couple of years of experience at it, what do you have some lessons learned, or some things that you wish you could have traveled back in time and given as advice to yourself when you were first starting out?
Yeah, I would say big lessons learned are just to not doubt yourself as much, and to like, if you have an idea, if you have something that you want to implement, or like something you want to do, just go ahead and do it. Obviously within reason of like, if where you're working, if it makes sense. But a lot of times, like I was just like, especially the first year, I was like very like doubting myself, because I was always like comparing what I was doing to like people who were doing this for 5, 10, 15 years, and I was just like, well, I'm not up to their standards. So like I always like kind of like held a lot of my ideas in, or things like that. And so if I could go back, I would just be like, you know what, like I'm in a different journey right now, and to just go for it. So that would be one thing. And that's one learning I would have, is like experiment, like try, if you have an idea, like go for it. And believe in yourself to do it. The other thing would be to, well, I guess a reaffirming thing that I'm glad I did do, and I would tell myself if I was doing it again to do the same thing, is like to make those relationships, to make time for those relationships with other community builders. Like I always made sure every month I had I reached out to people and connected and had time to get on phone calls and video calls and just chat and connect with like no agenda, just, hey, this is, we just want to become friends and learn more about each other. That's something that I would continue to tell myself if I was just starting, and even just like going forward now too. Like that's something that's like really important, and it's honestly been like a really silver lining of during this layoff process now of having time to do this and like being like, okay, like these, like I have time now to connect with people that I haven't done so yet, and just seeing the support that's like shown back at you from years of connecting and building and helping and supporting, like it's just really been uh, reaffirming that like this is the right call.
Yeah, no, for sure. I'm a little actually jealous of that because I always feel like I'm running so hard that finding the time to take a step back and take those moments to talk to others is a little challenging time wise. So being opportunistic about those moments, like when you have them, to
Mm-hmm.
use it is such a great piece of advice. Um, Max, do you consider yourself as having like a brain trust or an advisory group that you go to for inspiration and support? Do you have a few people that you lean on a regular basis?
I do, and then like I definitely do, but I just like I honestly like to follow all different types of community people and also people outside of this industry too. Sometimes I do catch myself being like, okay, I'm only getting advice from, or my timeline is only full of community people, and like while that's great and I love that, sometimes I'm like, oh, like I'm not connected to any like outside salespeople or people in digital marketing or HR, and so like I have to remind myself to like get a bigger picture of and like follow people outside of my industry too, because that helps spark ideas that like things I haven't been thinking about. I'm like, oh, like they're talking about this topic, how can I relate that back to community building? um, I've been doing that a lot with like my writing, is like looking at topics that aren't necessarily like community focused topics, but then like relating them back to like community building. And so um, yeah, but I mean, there's a ton of people. I want to name names, but I know I'm going to forget people too, and so like I don't want to like make people feel
Very fair.
upset for
Yep.
forgetting. So, but there are people who know, like, yeah, like there's a lot of people I follow and connect with, and people who I consider my mentors in the space too. Um, and it's super helpful. Like that's a great way to learn too. It's like, hey, like look who's doing it in the space. Like follow them on LinkedIn, Twitter, or X, or whatever social platform that they're on and you're on. And a lot of people are just, there's no secrets in the community industry. Like that's what I love too. Like people just share. Like they're like, hey, I ran this program. This is what the program was about. And then it's awesome to see those insights, like where I feel like other industries are very much like, oh, you have to subscribe and unlock this to
Mhm.
get here, or know someone to get these secrets. And community people are just like, no, like this is what I did. Like if it works for you, take it.
Yeah, I am not a big fan personally of gated content
Yeah.
around things, and I think that spirit of collaboration and sharing, which I think comes naturally to us as community builders, is essential for our resilience, especially at a difficult time in the industry. I think that it makes us all stronger by sharing those things and by celebrating each other and the unique talents that each of us has, in the space is incredibly important to do. I noticed that about your writing, and it resonated with me because I try to do similar things by ranging outside of our space. I'm particularly interested in concepts and frameworks from sociology and from urbanism
Mm-hmm.
and architecture, and even like hospitality industry. There's a lot of different adjacent concept kinds of knowledge spaces. And I was going to ask you about like one of your recent blogs was about collective illusions in the
Mm-hmm.
space. And I was kind of wondering how you got onto that as a topic and sort of how you related that to community a little bit.
Yeah, I was watching just like YouTube videos. Like my wife and I sometimes will just we'll binge watch a bunch of YouTube stuff, and so we came across a video that was on collective illusions, and I was like, wow, like I never like heard about this in the context that they were like speaking about that, and I was like, I wonder if this could also be applied to community, and like how that could be applied and like how that would work. And so I was like, I have a note list of topics and ideas that sometimes I write. I just put the idea down and I'll come back to it when I'm feeling inspired to write. And so I just did a bunch of research on collective illusions and was like, okay, like how would this be in community if it was just like an echo chamber of people, you know, no one's like, everyone's agreeable. No one's disagreeing with a certain topic or idea or something that technically isn't right, but people are just going along with it. And I could see it happening in community work and like how to like make sure that everyone's voices are heard, everyone's perspectives are heard, that people are open to being challenging. I think a lot of times, sometimes we're like when we create our community guidelines, we're like we want everyone to like get along and not argue and be friendly. But I think that there is some good like opportunities for people to challenge each other in a way that isn't like they're not tearing each other down, but they're like definitely like, oh, like I don't think that this is the right way to do this because of this. And so it just made me think about like how we structure guidelines and how we promote that in the community and how our member personas enforce those sometimes too, because we only like a certain type of people in the community and they think a certain type of way. So it's just really interesting and fascinating to go down that rabbit hole.
That's such an interesting space, Max. And thanks for giving us some language around that to apply.
Yeah.
Because I think it's got a lot to do with like even David Spinks was recently posting about cults and some of the dangers of that. Homogeneity in a community is not necessarily a good thing. We talk so much about like creating communities for people with like or common interests in what they do, but that doesn't mean that they all need to be agreeing about that approach.
Yeah.
Because if you have too much agreement to the exclusion of facts or kind of upset, if people get upset or fragile about attacking ideas, not people but ideas, you can end up with like an echo chamber. And so like I think it's so important we approach that and that we try to frame the spaces that we create online and off as psychologically safe places to really kind of beat up ideas and kind of learn from each other that way. I love that. I think that's I think that's a great insight. I encourage everybody to read that piece. I think you just published that on 1st of August, so it's pretty recent.
Yeah, it was recent, and but yeah, like so that's the type of stuff I'm getting inspired now about writing is like just going through YouTube or I wrote a whole piece on like design thinking and community building, and it was because my friend, when I was practicing for the conference, they told me they were like, hey, like everything is a prototype, and I was like, oh, I love that quote. And they were like, yeah, it's from this design thinking principle. And then that led me into this rabbit hole of design thinking. I was like, oh, how can I apply this to community building? And so I just look for stuff like that. Like that stuff is the thing that really excites me in writing. Not saying that like, the content that's out there now about like how to build a community, how to run an engagement like that stuff I love it. And like, I learn a lot from it. I just like to add my own approach to things like that.
Absolutely. Yes. Anirban really likes your philosophy. Just wanted to
thank you.
Give a couple of quick shouts here. For some of the comments that came through. Fam, a safe space for people who share, lift each other. Absolutely. Being generally curious and helping out never disappoints. Some nice takeaways from all of this. If you have questions for Max, please don't hesitate to drop them in the chat for us. We'll definitely try to get to them in the time we've got left here. Max, can we maybe come back to the to sort of the career here? Like, how are you finding the job market right now? What do you have sort of something that's making you feel positive about it? Or some things that you wish would be a little bit better about the market? I'm kind of curious, how you're reflecting on it these days.
Yeah, that's a great question. The job market is definitely like, it's an interesting place right now. Like I do notice that there are more opportunities opening up. like this month and last month than there were previously.
Sure.
But there's a lot of amazingly talented people that are out of work looking for work, and so it just makes every job application or interview, like, it's just, there's so many like great people for that role. But I'm still remaining optimistic. Like, I think when we are in those like down eras and those reset eras, like, they don't last forever. It's the same way that the good times don't last forever, the bad times don't last forever either. So you just kind of have to like weather the storm, and it's a lot easier said than done. And I'm sometimes not like the best at taking my own advice on that, but um, that's what's keeping me optimistic, is like there are opportunities out there, and there are opportunities out there that aren't even posted. And so I think that's where it's really important to connect with other people at companies you may like, or other community builders, because they might know something that isn't public, or might be public in a month or two when they
Amen.
get the
Yeah.
funding for that. And so,
Yeah.
I look at back at my career journey, and I would say like 90 to 95% of the jobs I've landed throughout my career, I've never traditionally applied.
So,
Um,
mhm.
and it's either been a referral, it's been through a role opening up, and it was just perfect timing, things like that. And so that's something I remind myself too. Like, when I get down, if I don't see a lot of great things posted on LinkedIn, I'm like, okay, like, that's not the end of the world. Like, I'm going to continue to connect and build my network and be helpful and remain optimistic, because, Monday could come around and there's a great opportunity that like 100% aligns with me, and it just works out. And so, I try to keep those, like, that mindset in place, even though some days are easier than others, but,
Yeah.
I remind myself of that.
I totally relate. A very wise woman who I loved and admired is no longer with us. She always said, "Don't let the highs get too high or the lows get too low," because, as you said, it's always going to change.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, that's great advice. The other thing that I want to underscore what you said, from my experience, as a recruiter, when I would sit down and talk to, whether it was an executive or a help desk person, my advice to them was always keep networking. Keep networking. Like, if you set yourself, 5 meetings a day, like during your search, that's going to be much more valuable, I would argue, than sending in a lot of job applications.
Hmm.
It's mentally exhausting and spiritually impoverishing to send off job apps all the time, and I see it happening in our space day after day right now, and it's saddens me, and it makes me angry at HR and recruiting professionals for propagating a system that is so soul crushingly bad.
Yeah.
There's a really terrible customer experience around the application process and the interview process for many organizations. I'm sure you could share some bad behaviors that you've seen on that front. I know I've heard a lot of the horror stories from people in our space, and some of the frustrations, but to focus on the positives. I like your approach and the way that you're thinking about all this. So Max, we're kind of coming down to the end of our time here, and
Yeah.
I wanted to give you a chance to maybe kind of plug things that you're working on or that you're interested in right now, or if you're looking for collaborators around any kind of efforts. Tell me what's going on in your world.
Yeah. So I've been open to work. It's crazy. It's been like a little over 3 weeks since the layoff happened, which is like, it feels longer and shorter at the same time. But yeah, through that process, I've been able to connect with a lot of people, and I want to continue to do so. So if we haven't connected yet, or we've chatted a long time ago, feel free to reach out, and like, we'll set up some time to just talk and like, catch up and chat. I would love that. I've been working a lot in like supporting Brian on his community strategy
Yeah.
academy, which has been like literally like a huge blessing. Like, he's someone I really look up to as a mentor in this space. And
Yeah.
when I was going like through the layoff, he was just like, "Hey, like, why don't you just help me out with this, and we'll figure it out." And I got to know him a lot more in at the Community Rebellion conference too. And so
For those of you who may be new to the space, he's referring to Brian Oblinger, who's just opened a community. It's an academy. What is the title of it?
yeah, It's Community Strategy Academy.
Community Strategy Academy. So great place to learn how to build
Honestly,
community.
like
Yeah.
the amount of courses that are on there, the experience that Brian has, and like, I mean, I've completed 8 courses in like the span of 2 weeks. It's so much fun. Like I love it. I'm learning a ton. I'm filling up my notebook of notes and ideas. And so I would say too, like even if you're on a job market, it's always great to continue to like learning and expanding your knowledge. And even if you have a job, right? Like keep the learner mindset. Like there's always something new to
Yeah.
learn. No matter if you've been in the space for a long time either. And so yeah, I love being part of that and like that and helping out, with that. And then just connecting with people and like having that support. Like people reach out to me. I've been reaching out to me every day and like been like, hey, like I tagged you in this role, or I think this would be a good fit, or we're thinking about maybe opening up something around here. And like that's just like all those messages like brighten my day. And it's just really great to like get that support. And so yeah, that's something that's keeping me going for sure.
I appreciate that. And there are a couple of other neat resources for people that are in the midst of a job search right now. I know that Adrian Spare from Community Leaders Institute has
Oh
set
yeah.
up like a weekly support call for anybody that's in the job search. I just participated in my first one this Thursday, and just a nice place to kind of share like what are you finding in the market? Are there opportunities? Ways to share experiences and best practices around that. I know there's a dedicated space in the CLI community around that. And I like them because they're sort of a non-platform affiliated professional organization for us
Mm-hmm.
as a space. There are a lot. There's an embarrassment of riches of places out there, but I particularly like what they're doing. Also, Lori Goldman, who's in a search herself, has been putting out a super insightful blog around the job search. That I think if for anybody that's thinking about the space or is in the space and looking for their next adventure, that there's some great stuff there. And also, I'd be remiss if I didn't give a shout out to Jamie Langscoff and Carrie Melissa Jones and others who are continuously sharing job opportunities as they're seeing them out in the space. So it's been a very supportive, kind of environment for all that. I know we had a question from Anirban. She was asking about how AI is disrupting the industry. I wonder if we can kind of squeeze that one in here before we do a wrap up for the day. Are you finding that AI is like having a part to play in the job finding process?
It is in the sense of, so like I use this tool called Teal, which like allows you to like upload your resume and like duplicate it for a certain job, and the AI in there where it helps you like pull out certain keywords for job ads. I think that's been super helpful. So that's been like really great in the helping make sure like your resume is tailored to the job description, where you might just like gloss over it or not catch it. I think that's really helpful. I also think like using ChatGPT as practice for like interviews, or
Oh yeah, that's
maybe
amazing.
like bullet points or things like that. That like it's not necessarily copy and paste, but sometimes like we just get so stuck in our head. We're like, oh, I don't actually know what to write, and then just having something to like helps you at least start and formulate an idea, like that has been like really helpful. And we didn't have those tools when I was looking for jobs 2 years ago. So
Right.
it's
Right.
been really cool to be helpful. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. No, that's cool. And there was one more question in here from Fam. What trends do you foresee in community management and how businesses prepare for them? That's a big question. I'm not sure that we'll be able to do justice to it in this time. Maybe something we can kind of think about and come back to. Um, so I know I always try to go back out to the comments afterwards and add some thoughts and color. But I don't know if you had any top of mind thoughts, Max.
Yeah, I would just say that, I continue to see community becoming a big part of businesses and like how like people are reaching their customers and connecting and like growing. I just think that like, you know, 2020, the start of the pandemic was a hyper growth period because people were like, everyone's online, we're going to stay online, no one's leaving, it's going to be like this forever. And we're kind of seeing like, okay, like that's not going to be the case. Like it's going to be different than pre COVID, but it's going to be different. It's going to be like not as like hyper online as we thought it was going to be. And so we're in that reset period where we're like, okay, we grew too quickly. We need to like slow down, build the foundation first, and like build these processes, and then we'll grow again. So I do see that trend happening. I do see growth in tech and everything rebounding. I just think like right now it's in that like reset foundation period again. Because when you grow too quickly, like even if you're at a company and you go from 50 to 100 employees, like it's too much. There's no foundation in place for that. So I think we're kind of like in that period. The light is at the end of the tunnel. I don't think we're in that period for too much longer, but I think that's like we're headed to some good parts.
I think that's a great message and very insightful. So Max, I think you and I are going to get to collaborate a little bit together coming up at the Led By Community Summit that's coming up in early November. I know neither one of us knows what our topic is specifically going to be yet for that, but shout out to Francisco for organizing that and the rest of the volunteer team. He's got a nice growing team for all of that. So looking forward to working with you on that going ahead.
Yeah, likewise.
Yeah. And Max, if somebody wants to get in touch with you, what's the best way to reach out to you?
Yeah, just LinkedIn. It's probably like I'm on there all the time, so just like message me there. My portfolio, which I think was shared in the chat, it has all my contact information and socials and things like that. And just send me a message. Like I'm always down to connect, always down to like chat, and so don't hesitate to reach out at all.
That's fantastic. So a message to any employers out there that may catch this stream: hire Max. He's great. He'd be a
I
terrific
appreciate
addition
it.
to your team. And there's a lot of other talented community professionals who are in the market right now. Your organization needs community because it's your front line. It's your digital front door for the organization, much more so than your website or your other email marketing campaigns, your social media platforms. They may be entries to a dedicated community, but having a strong community manager, a strong community strategy is essential, I think, for any business at this point in time. So definitely reach out for that. And for those of you who tuned in who are aspiring community professionals or in the community search right now, open invitation for me. I spent 15 years as a tech recruiter. I'm used to reading resumes and CVs. If you're looking for a set of eyes to look at it and give you some thoughts and ideas around it, that's not an AI, although I do like AI. I think it's super useful for that. Please don't hesitate to reach out to me either on LinkedIn or in any of the Slacks in which I participate, in the community space. Would love to be of help to you. With that, just wanted to mention, if you happen to miss my last stream with Amadou, where we were talking about improv and storytelling for community building, we have, through the able editing skills of my producer, Kalisa Mickle, put together a series of best excerpts from that live stream, where we're talking about improv techniques that you can leverage to help with your creative community building efforts to build a sense of belonging and inclusion within those spaces. Amadou is always a terrific and insightful guest, and we had a blast on the last stream. So if you missed it, I encourage you to go out to our YouTube channel for Clocktower Advisors and subscribe, comment, like, tell us what you love, tell us what you hate. Always looking for that. The channel's been growing. I think we're up to 138 subscribers right now. Would love to hit 150 before the end of the month. So if you have some friends, you want to share it out there with it. Again, we're just trying to reach outside of the community bubble world. And as much as I love everybody within it, part of what I'm trying to do is evangelize what we're doing as a space through a lot of different departments and disciplines in organizations. So thanks to all of you who've been supportive of what I've been trying to do with Talk About Your Community. And I'll also, once again, just kind of mention that Lace de Olivieri will be on September 22nd for the next live stream, Designing Communities for Member Contribution. In the meantime, Max, thank you so much for being on the show. This was a blast.
Thank you. Yeah, this was a lot of fun. Thank you so much for having me.
Fantastic. You're welcome back anytime. Love to have you. And if you out in the audience would like to be on the show, if you've got an idea for something about your community building efforts or a technology that you offer or a framework that you'd like to chat about, would love to have you as a guest. please reach out via LinkedIn, and we'll see about getting you scheduled. We do talk about your community every 2 weeks, and we love to hear your ideas and thoughts. And it makes all of us richer, through these opportunities to share together online. With that, I will say this is the end of this stream. I wish you a pleasant and restful weekend, everybody. Be good to yourselves, because if you're not good to yourself, you're no good to anybody else. And Max, I will see you again, hopefully sometime soon.
Yeah, sounds great. Thank you, everyone.
Goodbye, everybody.